For 2 years, I sent my father $2,400 on the 15th of every month. By the time I learned the truth, I had sent him $57,600. My sister was already posting her new house. I was still driving a 2009 hatchback with a cracked side mirror. My name is Reese. I am 36 years old. I clean teeth for a living at a small dental office, 2 towns over from the apartment I shared then with Jordan, who was my fiancé at the time and is my husband now. I make a steady wage. I have the kind of job that does not make you rich and does not make you poor. The kind of job where you remember most of your patients by their first names and they bring you small jars of jam at Christmas. Welcome back to Rose Untold Stories. This is the place for stories about people who were called difficult, dramatic, or ungrateful until the receipts proved they had been right all along. If you have ever been used in silence and then blamed for speaking up, stay with me. Let me go back to where this started. My mother had open heart surgery a few years ago. The surgery was real. The hospital bill was real. The slow months of her recovery, when she could not lift her own laundry basket, were real. I sat with her in that hospital room for 9 days. I drove home through 3 states in my car. I made soup in her kitchen for 2 weeks after she came home, and one afternoon my father pulled me aside in the hallway and cried into my shoulder and said, "Reese, what would we do without you?" I held him while he said it. I believed him while he said it. That memory is the one I keep going back to now, because I cannot tell you, looking at it from this distance, whether that moment was real or whether my father had already started measuring me for what came next. About a year after my mother recovered, my father called me on a Tuesday evening. He sounded tired in a way I had not heard before. He told me he needed to talk to me about something he had been embarrassed to bring up. The bills from my mother's surgery had been worse than they had let on. For almost 2 years, he had been drawing from his retirement account to cover what insurance had not. Now he was staring at the balance, wondering how he was supposed to make it to 70. Then he said the sentence that changed the next 2 years of my life. He said, "Reese, my retirement is gone." He said he would not have asked. He said it 3 times. I was 34 when he called me. Jordan and I had been engaged for almost 2 years by then. We had been saving for a small house. We had been saving for a wedding. I had been driving the same car since college, the one with the side mirror that had cracked when a snowplow clipped it the winter before. I had told Jordan we would get it replaced in the spring. We had not gotten it replaced. I did not even take a night to think about it. I told my father I would send $2,400 every month, starting on the 15th, for as long as he needed it. I told him not to mention it to anyone, because I knew he would feel ashamed if my sister Kendra found out. I told him we were family. I told him family did this. I want to tell you what Jordan said about it that night, because I owe him a fair telling of this. Jordan did not say I was being foolish. He did not say I was being used. He just sat across from me at the kitchen table and asked me one question. He asked whether my father had given me a number. He asked whether I knew how long this was supposed to last. I told him I had not asked. Jordan looked at me for a long moment. He took a slow breath. And then he said, "Okay, we will figure out the wedding later." Then he stood up, washed the dishes, and did not bring it up again. Jordan loved me too much to argue with me about my own father. I have thought about that a lot since. The months turned into a year. The wedding date moved. I told the venue I would call them back in the spring. I did not call them back in the spring. Jordan did not push. He started talking less about the house we had been looking at. He started picking up extra shifts at work without telling me. I noticed. I did not say anything. The side mirror on my car stayed cracked. My family said the words I needed to hear. My father called me strong. My mother told me the family was lucky to have me. My grandmother on my mother's side, her name was Walden, but everyone in the family called her Wally, sent me a card every few months with one line in her handwriting. "You have always been the one with both feet on the ground." I kept those cards in a drawer. At the time, I thought she meant I was loved. Later, I understood that everyone in my family had a different use for that word. Strong. Wally passed in the 2nd year of the payments. I drove to her funeral in my car. The drive was 7 hours each way. My sister Kendra flew in from somewhere warm, in a coat I had never seen before, and at the reception she hugged me and told me that I was the strong one and that the family did not say it enough. I want to know where this story is finding you tonight. Drop a comment and tell me your city and your hour. I want to know how far this is reaching. There was 1 month, in the 2nd year, when I came up short. Jordan's hours had been cut, my car had needed a new transmission. I sent my father $1,800 instead of $2,400 and added a note that said the rest was coming the following week. He left me a voicemail one day later. He did not raise his voice, he never raised his voice. He just said, in a sound that I have come back to many times since, that he was disappointed, that he had been counting on me, that he hoped I would not let it happen again. Then he told me he was not angry, only worried about my mother. I still have that voicemail in my phone. I have not deleted it, I have not listened to it again, either. I just keep it. I sent the remaining $600 the next morning, 2 days early. I never came up short again. Near the end of the second year, Jordan and I decided we had waited long enough on the house. We had been saving the small amount we could on the side, and Jordan had been at his job long enough to qualify for a first-time buyer program. We found a small place in a neighborhood I had never expected to be able to afford. We started a mortgage application. The bank asked for everything. Bank statements going back 1 year, tax returns, proof of income, a spreadsheet of every recurring transfer. I sat at my kitchen table for 3 nights pulling it all together. Jordan made me coffee. He did not ask me how it was going. He knew. I drove my car to the bank on a Wednesday morning. The cracked mirror caught the morning light at the stop sign before the parking lot. I did not think much of it then. The loan officer was a woman in her early 50s named Donna, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck and a small framed picture of a grandchild on her desk. She was polite, she was efficient. She went through the documents in the order I had stacked them. About 40 minutes in, she stopped on a page. She looked at it for a long time. Then she looked at me over the top of her reading glasses. She told me she had a question, if I did not mind. Because my name was still attached to an old family emergency account my father had opened years earlier, the bank had asked for those statements too. I had not thought anything of it. To me, it was just the account where I sent the monthly support money. Donna had noticed the regular transfer of $2,400 going into that account every month for the past year. She asked me whether it was rent. She asked me whether it was family support. I told her it was family support. She nodded slowly, then she went back to the page. She turned to the next one. She stopped again. She looked at me again. "Ma'am," she said, very carefully, "I do not want to overstep, but that joint account you have been sending money to. Last week, it made a transfer out for $55,000 to a title and escrow company. Did you sign for that?" I did not say anything. She told me to take my time. She told me she could wait. I did not take my time. I had not signed anything. I needed a minute. I said I would be right back. Then I walked out of the bank and into the parking lot, where I stood beside my car in the November wind for what was probably 5 minutes and felt like 5 hours. I called Jordan. He answered on the first ring. And I repeated every word Donna had said. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he told me to come home. He told me he would be there. I drove home in a way I do not remember. I sat down at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I logged into the joint account that my father had set up years ago for what he had once called family emergencies. I had not looked at the account in almost 2 years. I had only set up the standing transfer and then turned my eyes away from it, the way you turn away from a bandage you do not want to peel. I scrolled. The transfers in were mine. Every 15th, $2,400. 24 of them. The transfers out were not what I had been told. There was a regular monthly transfer to a credit card I did not recognize. There were transfers to a brokerage account in my father's name that had only grown over the 2 years. There were small transfers to my mother's personal account, the one she used for what she called her own things. And then there was the line Donna had stopped on, a wire transfer of $55,000 to a title and escrow company. The memo line was 5 words long. Kendra closing funds. Family contribution. I sat at the table and stared at that line for a long time. Then I opened my phone. I went to Kendra's Instagram, which I had not checked in months because looking at my sister's life had stopped feeling good a long time before. The most recent post was from that same week. It was a photo of her standing on the front porch of a small white house with green shutters. Her caption said, quote, "Finally home. Couldn't have done this without my family." Later, Kendra would say it was just from the final walkthrough. But the caption had already said what it said. The street name was in the photo. It was the street I had pointed out to Jordan on a drive years ago, before any of this started. I had told him, from the driver's seat of my car, that if I ever bought a house, I would want it to be in a neighborhood like that one. Kendra was standing in front of a house on the street I had loved, acting like it was already hers. I did not cry yet. I went back to the account. I downloaded everything. Every statement. Every transfer. Every memo line. Then, while I was saving the last file, my phone buzzed. It was a text in the family group chat. The regular one. The one with my father, my mother, Kendra, and me. The message was from my mother. It said, "Kendra, do not post anything else about the house until Reese signs the gift letter. If she realizes the down payment came from the retirement money, she may stop the transfers before Friday." I read it once. Then I read it again. Then I watched the message disappear. My mother deleted it. A few seconds later, another message appeared. "Wrong group, sorry. Wrong group, sorry." Those 3 words told me almost as much as the message itself. There was another group. A group where they talked about my transfers. A group where they talked about getting my signature before I realized what they had done. A group without me. I sat at the table with my phone in my hand, and for the first time that day, I felt something colder than shock. I felt the shape of the plan. This had not been confusion. It had not been a misunderstanding. It had not been my father panicking one month and helping Kendra the next. They had known. My mother had known. My father had known. Kendra had known enough. And now they needed me to sign a gift letter so the lender would believe the down payment was a family gift, not money they had taken from me under a lie. I canceled the standing transfer that afternoon. Then I called the bank where the joint account lived and began the process of removing myself from it. I also shut off every external transfer connected to it. 15 minutes later, my mother called. Not my father, my mother. That told me everything. I let it ring the first time. Then she called again. Then again. On the 4th call, I answered. She did not start with hello. She said, "Reese, what did you just do?" Her voice was not sad. It was panicked. I told her I had canceled every transfer. For the first time in 2 years, my mother sounded afraid. Not because my father's retirement was gone. Because Kendra's closing was. She told me I needed to undo it immediately. I asked her why. She said, "Because your sister's closing is Friday." There it was. Not "I am sorry," not "let me explain," not "we should have told you," because your sister's closing is Friday. I asked her if Dad's retirement was really gone. She did not answer. I asked her if the medical debt was what they had said it was. She still did not answer. I told her I knew about the $55,000. I told her I knew about the brokerage account that had not been drained. I told her I had seen the wrong text. There was silence on the line. Then I heard my father in the background, in a voice he clearly thought I could not hear. Tell her now." That was the moment I understood that the conversation I was in was not a conversation. It was a script my mother had been writing for 2 years. My mother came back to the phone and lowered her voice. She told me there had been a misunderstanding. She told me the gift letter was just a formality. She told me Kendra's lender needed it before final approval. A gift letter, saying that the money I had sent over the last 2 years had been a family gift, that it would not need to be repaid. I said it was not a gift. She said it has to be for the mortgage. I said that sounds like Kendra's problem. My mother gasped. A real gasp, like I had slapped someone. Then she said, "Do not punish your sister because you are upset with us." I looked at Kendra's Instagram post again. Finally home. Couldn't have done this without my family. Then I said, "I am not punishing her. I am just done paying for her life with mine." I hung up. My father called 7 minutes later. I did not answer. Kendra called twice. I did not answer. My mother sent one text. "Please do not make this ugly." I looked at the message for a long time. Then I screenshotted it. Because by then, I had learned. When people say "do not make this ugly," they usually mean do not show anyone what they did. Sunday came. I drove my car to my parents' Moying house. Jordan sat in the passenger seat. He had not asked to come. I had asked him. We did not talk much on the drive. He turned the radio on and then off again. The cracked mirror caught the late morning sun, and I remember thinking, somewhere on the third hour, that the crack had been there for almost 2 years, and I had stopped seeing it. The way you stop seeing things you have decided to live with. The street my parents lived on was the same as it had ever been, the same mailbox with the same cracked lid, the same wreath on the same front door, the same wind chimes my mother had put up the spring after her surgery, the one I had paid for half of without ever telling her. She opened the door before I rang the bell. She had been watching from the window. Her face was the face I had seen on her my whole life, when she was trying very hard to look like a woman who had nothing to hide. She told me she had made the chicken I liked. She told me Kendra was already there. She kissed my cheek. I did not kiss hers back. We sat in the dining room, my father at the head, my mother to his right, Kendra across from her. Jordan and I sat together on the other side. Nobody touched the food. In the end, I did not start. I just put a folded piece of paper down on the table beside my plate. It was the spreadsheet of every transfer I had made over 2 years. I had printed it the night before. $57,600, line by line, with the dates and the memo lines and the running total at the bottom. Beside the spreadsheet, I put a printout of the wire transfer, Kendra closing funds, family contribution. Beside that, I put a screenshot of Kendra's Instagram post. Finally home. Couldn't have done this without my family. Beside that, I put a screenshot of my mother's wrong text. Kendra, do not post anything else about the house until Reese signs the gift letter. If she realizes the down payment came from the retirement money, she may stop the transfers before Friday. Beside that, I put the second screenshot, wrong group, sorry. I did not say anything for a long moment. I let them look at the papers. My father started first. He told me there had been a series of misunderstandings. He told me my mother had handled the practical side of things, and that he had not always known the full picture. He said he thought I had known about the new house. He said he thought Kendra had told me. By the time he finished, he had used the word assumed 4 times. Kendra started crying. She told me she had thought I knew. She told me our mother had told her I wanted to help. She said it in a voice that I knew very well, the voice she had used since she was small whenever she had wanted to be believed. I looked at her, and I knew, in the way a sister knows, that she had known more than she had let herself know, but less than the others. She had wanted the house badly enough to stop asking questions. That was its own kind of choice. Then I turned to my mother. My mother had not spoken yet. She had her hands folded in her lap the way she folded them in church. She was looking at the chicken on the platter and not at me. I asked her how long there had been a family chat without me. She did not answer. I told my father that I had counted, on the drive down, the things I had given up over 2 years. I had not gotten married. I had not bought a house. I had not replaced the car. I had skipped trips because I could not afford the gas after the 15th. Every time they called me strong, they were not praising me. They were telling me to keep going. They had never once called Kendra strong because they had never needed Kendra to bleed for somebody else. My father started to speak. I stopped him before he could begin. I was not finished, and I would not be signing the gift letter. I told them the money I had sent was money I had sent in good faith, because my father had described it as support for medical debt and retirement survival. I would be keeping every bank statement, every voicemail, every screenshot, every message, and every record as proof that the money had been requested under false pretenses. Kendra's lender would have to make their own decision without my signature. And I made one thing clear. This was not a punishment. This was simply that I was no longer part of an agreement I had never agreed to. I stood up. I walked out the back kitchen door, the way I had walked out of that house since I was small. My mother followed me. I knew she would. She caught me at the bottom of the porch steps. She had a cigarette in her hand. I had not known she still smoked. She had told me years ago that she had quit. That was another thing. She said my name. Then she said, in a voice that was not asking forgiveness, only asking me to understand. "I am sorry, Reese, but she is my baby too." I looked at her for a long moment. I told her that I had been her baby too. I told her once. I did not say it again. She did not answer. She looked at the cigarette. I walked to my car. Jordan was already in the passenger seat. I did not see them again that year. Kendra's closing did not happen that Friday. It was delayed for weeks. I do not know every detail of how they salvaged it, because by then, I had stopped being the person who collected everyone else's emergencies and called them my responsibility. What I do know is this. For the first time, my family had to explain the family contribution without my signature. For the first time, the story they had been telling had to stand up in a room where I was not helping it stand. Kendra eventually kept the house, but not the version of the story where everyone had simply wanted to help her. My father called twice. I did not answer. My mother sent one card with no apology inside, just a sentence about how families should not let money come between them. I returned it unopened. Jordan and I finally got married the following spring. It was small. It was quiet. It was ours. No secret chat, no chicken dinner. No one who thought love had to come with a monthly payment. We bought our own place not long after that. It was smaller than the one we had originally looked at. It was on a street I had not noticed before but had grown to love by the time the paperwork was signed. The kitchen window faced east, so the morning light came in through the cabinets before the rest of the house woke up. If this story stayed with you, hit the like button and subscribe before you go. New stories come every week for the people who finally stopped explaining themselves and started living. We moved in on a Saturday in early April. Jordan carried the heavy things. I unpacked the kitchen. My car was in the new driveway, with the cracked mirror still cracked with almost 200,000 miles on it now. Jordan brought it up that evening the way he had been bringing it up for almost a year. He told me we could look at something newer that weekend. Something safer for the highway drives I had started making to see a few friends from college, the ones who had quietly become my actual people during the long years when I had not had room for them. He told me he would take care of it. He told me I deserved a car that worked the way a car should. I told him to wait a little longer. I did not tell him why. I do not know if I could have told him that early in the new house. But I will tell you, because you have stayed with me this long. My car was the last thing I owned that knew what I had been before I started saying no. Every dent in it was a year I had said yes when I should have said no. Every mile on it was a 15th of the month when I had wired the money before I had paid my own electric bill. I was not going to replace it on a Saturday afternoon, in a clean dealer lot, with a coffee in my hand, as if those years had not happened. I will replace it, but I am going to be the one who decides when. Has anyone in your life ever called you strong every time they needed something from you? Did you stop letting them? Tell me in the comments. Somebody else may need to read your answer tonight. I did not cancel those transfers out of revenge. I canceled them because I had counted, finally, what they had cost. And because 15 minutes after I chose myself, my mother called in a panic. In that panic, I heard the truth more clearly than I had heard it in 2 years. They were never afraid my father would run out of money. They were afraid I would stop sending mine. My car is in the driveway tonight. The mirror is still cracked. Wherever this story has reached you tonight, I am grateful you stayed with me. Some things you keep because they are beautiful. Some things you keep because they are useful. And some things you keep for a little while longer because they were beside you when nobody else was, and you would like to be the one who decides when that ends.